and you are listening to Pro Advocate Radio with your host James O'Brien and Deb Beecham, Director and Founder of My Advocate Center, and our special guest George Gamble, owner of Investigative Solutions LLC. And George, one of the big things that I think y'all accomplish when you're used right is being able to take the he said, she said out of the family court system, which really is the biggest problem I think the judges face when they're trying to make decisions on this. Is everybody's throwing accusations around. The story generally falls somewhere in the middle. That may be way off to one side, but it's generally in the middle somewhere. And you guys can come in and just present facts and do it in a way that the court is willing to accept them, because that's one of the things we see. People will come in with facts, but the court doesn't want, they want to label them as hearsay or whatever, but you guys know how to present it in a way where the court's going to accept this.
That's true, James. And one of the things that we strive for is that to collect the evidence that will assist in the mediation process. I think the mediation process is an awesome idea. It does work if you have the information that you need to make people behave. And that's basically just what it is. It gives everybody a chance to calm down and catch their breath. And when you present the facts, there's really nothing you can do to say about that, whether it's video surveillance or any of the tools that we use forensically, or anything that we can use to help the client.
Well, and a lot of it is because basically we come down to two issues. It's the kids and it's the money.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And I know a lot of times one of the biggest problems that really ramps this up is one party assuming the other party's hiding assets, or maybe they are hiding assets, and the ability to come in and show that there are hidden assets or they're not. Sometimes by being able to show your client that, you know what, really that is all there is, you can de-escalate this thing a lot.
That's correct, James. A lot of times what does happen, and you hit it right on the head when you say about hiding assets, usually when one person is going to, or they're planning a separation or a divorce action, is they do start to hide assets. They start to move around wealth. Very rarely do they move properties, because that's a little bit more effort involved in that. But that does happen. And the key is to use the proper method to collect that evidence so you can use it, and to show exactly where the monies are, show what the assets are, and put it on the table so that now we can really negotiate as to what's going on here. Our job is to get the information to help our client. And when it comes to the assets, so that is a very, very important part of the investigation, is the wealth of either party.
Yeah, we see a lot of people being taken into mediation and different, like a 60-day conference, without all the facts on the table, and being asked to make decisions about settlements when the investigation hasn't really even started.
That's correct.
Let alone been completed.
And it doesn't go anywhere. It dies right there, and so you're back out there again, just you accomplish nothing.
You know, something I think might be helpful is for us to do a kind of a mock timeline. Say, under these circumstances, you know, maybe not ideal, but like a realistic scenario, you know, within 30, 60, 90 days, and 6 months, what is possible to accomplish in that amount of time, you know, and if everybody's cooperating, and if everyone's not cooperating, you know, then the attorneys can weigh in and say, this is what we do when somebody doesn't cooperate. You know, we ask the court to enforce discovery rules, etc. But I think that's something that we'll follow up on that'll be helpful.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things too is, like you said, especially in the mediation process, there may be information that you get that might not help in court, but it sure might help in mediation.
That's correct, because now you've just gotten everybody's eyes wide open as to what's really there. When it comes to the fact that the people's emotions are very high, and for whatever reason it seems to one of the parties will forget that you're responsible to take care of those kids.
Right. And
so they want to hide the assets because they don't want to pay any money, or they don't want to give away any wealth, or they feel they've been harmed, so why should they? No matter what the catalyst was that put them in that place, they do need to understand that it is a financial responsibility. The other thing that we look at also is that whenever you have a vast amount of wealth, and one of the spouses controls everything, it makes it difficult for our clients to mount a good defense. It makes it difficult for them to come to us and say, I need a full investigation to help me in this matter, but their resources are limited. So then at that point we have to focus on what will give us the best results for what they need, and then work closely with their attorneys to present that evidence to them so that they can have a proper conclusion.
Well, and I know one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is the way affairs affect divorce. a lot of times the court may not really care unless it's an alimony situation or a prenuptial, but those kind of things could play a big role in a mediation situation where we want to keep this between us. We don't really want to make this a public fight.
That's correct. And we've been very fortunate to collect some rather telling surveillance.
I can imagine.
And you'd be surprised how you have some people that will simply deny it, and we have photographs, and we have just about anything you can think of. We had situations where we do DNA analysis of clothing, looking for male or female biologicals, depending on what the situation is. You can't really deny that.
Right.
I mean, it's really it's a slam dunk. But yet we have people until the 13th hour will say, nope, I'm not doing anything, and then it costs all this time and effort. The courts get upset because what are we doing here? And they finally say, well, okay, I agree, I was wrong.
Right.
But they go through the whole process just to finally admit that we got them. And but the interesting thing about the divorce actions and the methods of getting people in infidelity and cheating is that it's changed dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
The laws have changed. There's things that we can do, there's things that we can't do. We've had people that have come to us and said, George, can't you just look through the window? I know he's in there with somebody.
Right.
And I said, no, that's actually a crime, and we'll go to jail. So we try to educate the people as we go along and tell them what we can do and what we can't do. But the emotions are high, and people are just so upset about everything. For whatever reason, there's a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
But the tools that are available today are so compelling that it's hard for a person to go anywhere. I mean, when DNA analysis is 99.9999% positive, I mean,
right?
Why do you want to fight it? And but James and Deb, you guys bring up some good points about the legal system and how it works and the problems we run into it. And I think that the advocacy is an awesome idea because of the fact that it teaches people. You might not need it today, but one of your friends might need it today. You might help educate somebody else
right.
that's not aware, and so you'll be taken advantage of. A lot of times we have clients that will come to us after the case and say, George, we had all the evidence, we had everything in the world, but the attorney did not use it.
Mm-hmm.
We can't control that. But what we can control is we're going to give you an option to have the best evidence to support your case, whether it's good or whether it's bad.
So you are seeing that people are upset that their attorneys didn't use what was available to them?
Yes, that's correct, Deb. So we have presented evidence in cases before,
okay.
And but it's the attorneys. That's why I say it's very important to communicate with them because they have a direction they're going with.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when we present that evidence, they might feel that it's not in the direction that they want to go in their case, how they present it to the courts. But yet we hear on our end that the client comes to us and says, I can't believe that they didn't take that.
Well, you have a different perspective because you can see what the outcome was and what, and we're not talking as attorneys, we're just talking about
Absolutely.
Common sense.
Sure.
That if you had a case where the outcome was hinging on what was presented to the court and it was very clear, there was very clear misconduct that was causing harm to another party or to the children, and that information wasn't used, or maybe the transcript wasn't done accurately, you can see where people would be upset.
Yes.
So that's one of the big things that we're working on, and I don't know how much you've heard our other shows or looked at some of the case studies that we're doing, but I mean that's why we're talking to legislators and larger news media outlets. That's why we had an investigative reporter in here, because he was able to tell what he's experienced when this didn't happen to him. He just saw what was going on in the community and that it was widespread. So, we're looking for solutions to these problems because I want to see fewer. I mean, we get so many people come through the website and asking questions on social media. We want to see fewer people devastated after these cases where it's clear they were taken from bad to worse. So if they're empowered and they understand how the process works, and they understand the difference in the types of professionals, how they can help and help early, then I think we'll have a better, healthier, safer community for our children to grow up in. So that's what drives me.
Well, I think a good point you were making is it is about getting that information that the attorney wants to use. If my spouse is running around on me, that's very hurtful. That may be the most important thing to me. It may not mean a thing to my attorney.
That's correct. And James, is what happens is communication. And we also have to understand going into this as an investigator that we've been tasked to look for certain evidence to help the attorney do his job. That's very important. Now, I've got to tell you once again that, not all attorneys work the same way. You have some attorneys that are awesome, and you have some that I've seen that if I could, I'd tell my client to run, but I can't. And, so, we're not allowed to do that. So I will, trust me. So the thing is that in the investigative environment is that we have to follow certain rules of conduct, certain evidence, collecting of evidence in a proper manner, the proper paperwork for COCs for DNA, cell phone forensics, computer forensics. The thing is that we can do everything under the sun, but if we don't have the cooperation from the attorneys, then we've basically just been spinning our wheels. Now, having said that, there are some really good attorneys in the state of Georgia. There are some awesome guys out here, and we know of attorneys that charge over $1,000 an hour, and I know some that charge $150 an hour that you put them in the same ballpark, and they're knocking them out of the park, man.
Right.
These guys are good. You have some just because they're young, clients are a little bit nervous, and they do an awesome job. So don't think that every attorney's like not a good attorney doesn't use the evidence. We just have some situations, I think, where it's about education.
Mm-hmm.
Educate the client, the civilian, the people in the environment as to how to navigate these things and how to understand what's going on. And also be comfortable with your attorney and your investigators. I'll have people come in the office and I'll say, look, if you're not comfortable with us, don't hire us.
Right.
Because this is a long-term relationship. We're going to be talking, we're going to be communicating, and if we don't have that warm and fuzzy feeling, then you need to go somewhere else. And
because your job is not to help them hide something.
It's not, absolutely. And you know what? We've had cases where, and one of the things that really irritates me is that, well, it's human nature. A client will tell me their side of the story and what's going on in a divorce action. We can go into criminal actions. That's a whole different environment. In the civil actions, they will tell me certain things. We're out in the field, my investigators will collect some data, some information, and it shows they're absolutely lying about everything. So I have to call him back into the office and sit them down and say, what is all this? Well, and so now we're stuck. We're like, and they're not going to win. There's no way in the world they're going to win their case. But we've done our job, and we have to educate them at that point that this is how it is. Give this information to your attorney, or we will. And that's
right. Well, I think that's the biggest thing is, if you're not comfortable enough with your investigator and your attorney to be completely upfront with them, because the reality is, if I'm doing something wrong, it's eventually going to come out. So yes. If I'm upfront about it, now the damage can be mitigated by my lawyer, and I'm going to have a better outcome. It may not be the one I want, but it's going to be better than the one I'm going to get if I'm trying to hide it. Well, let me remind our listeners, you're listening to Pro Advocate Radio, and we're interviewing George Gamble, owner of Investigative Solutions, LLC. And George, let everybody know how to get in touch with you guys if your services are needed.
Sure. Our website is www.invsolutionsllc.net. And our Atlanta office is 404-829-2720. We're at 1401 Peachtree Street on the ground floor. Of course, down in Peachtree City, 678-788-6022 at the Executive Suites on Commerce.